What's up, everyone? We're back for another episode of Locked On Bucks. Team Greece just keep on rolling on. The Acropolis tournament is well and truly underway. And Mamu as well, trying to carry Team Georgia. Unsuccessful in the first game, but they'll continue to roll on. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. The schedule dropped. I don't know if Frank's got any takes. He's got takes about most things, so I'll ask him about that. And then we've got another mailbag question from our lovely listeners. So let's get started.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show daily. Also find my work over at ESPN alongside me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. We thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen or watch of every day as well. Starting to ramp up a little bit towards the NBA season. When the schedule drops, you know you're starting to get relatively close, particularly because I think they did it a little bit later this season. But we're going to talk about Team Greece first. They had a nice win over Poland, a team that probably didn't really look like they had enough to handle Giannis in this game. Firstly, what's that hoodie you're wearing there? Or jumper you got on
there? It's not a hoodie. It's just a kind of jacket.
It's a sweater.
I wear this all the time. It's my business school jacket.
For some reason, I thought, and it would have been spectacular by you. For some reason, I thought that was like a Greek, like a monument or something on the logo there. I need to get my eyes checked, but that would have been unbelievable.
No, this is just the main building at the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth. That's just a little logo. So disappointing. No Greek tie-in. No Greek tie-in.
You just wanted to flex that you've been to business school. All right, we get it.
I'm still stuck here talking to you, aren't I, Kane? I mean, what good did it do me, right?
I tell you what, you went to business school and you thought you were headed for big things, and now look at you. You're sitting here next to me. It's a tragic downfall.
Slumming.
What'd you take away from this Greek game? Because as you look at the box score, honestly, you see Giannis, 24 minutes of action, 3 for 4 from 2-point range, and you say, well, come on, Giannis, what is going on? Why aren't you taking more shots? It's because this guy potentially, or actually realistically, lived at the free throw line, which tells me Poland probably didn't have too many answers.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the last 3.5 quarters. So unfortunately, I missed the 18-2 start by Greece, and by the time I turned it on, Poland was just raining threes and actually took the lead at one point, which I was telling Eric, our friend Eric Name was there at the Acropolis, live from the Acropolis. Eric Name, his comedy special. I was telling you, it was great coaching adjustment by the Polish coach to just have his team just start making all their 3-pointers and take the lead. But it seemed like whenever Giannis got in the game, the bleeding immediately stopped for the Greeks, and he hit I think 2 more threes today. And interestingly, he started 9 for 11 from the free throw line, and then hit just 3 of 8 down the stretch. So normally it kind of goes the other way. It seems like normally he's actually worse early in games, and then he gets better from the foul line sort of as games go on. But look, I'm I think if longtime listeners know, I'm sort of beyond taking these small single game random samples and trying to extrapolate anything about what they mean for Giannis's 3-point shooting or free throw shooting or any of that. Happy to see some, a couple more 3-pointers go down, hit a couple threes in the previous game as well. All positive if the ball is going in. I mean, Poland, again, probably not the toughest opponent that Greece is going to face, but still fun to see them. Giannis kind of doing his thing, especially, I went back to his stats from the previous World Cup, and he had a lot of foul trouble in that series. I think he might have only averaged 26 minutes a game off the top of my head, but he also only averaged 14.8 points per game in the 2019 FIBA World Cup, which just kind of underscores, again, it really is just a different kind of sport. So it's been interesting seeing him put up just monster, especially per minute stat lines here in these first 2 games, because he really has not done that for Greece typically, because the FIBA game again is just very different, and Greece, never seems to have good 3-point shooting. So we'll see how that kind of translates into kind of the EuroBasket tournament, but they've got games the next 2 days. All but assuredly, Giannis is going to skip the Thursday game and then come back on Friday. I'm guessing probably play on Friday. Who knows? Maybe they hold him out of that game as well. And then, I think it was on the. I don't know if you have the schedule in front. I think the 25th and 28th. I think they have the two World Cup qualifiers that actually count for something, including the one against Jokic in Serbia. So, so again, hey, every game he gets through without injury is a win. And if he plays well and Greece plays well and they win games and they do it in front of home fans, all the better. Good to see. Great, grand, wonderful. Kostas Antetokounmpo also just was dunking a lot in this game. That was kind of fun to watch. So shout out to Kostas showing out a little bit as well. Thanasis had a hammer dunk late. But I think that's enough analysis from us that we need to do for a game like this. I will be very curious to just sort of see how Greece shapes up in once the EuroBasket runs around. And probably the most concerning thing for me at this point is just the EuroBasket schedule. This is pretty much always the case with these EuroBasket and FIBA World Cup. Like they always end up being super compressed schedules for the group play. And I think Greece has like 5 and 7 days or something like that. I think they've got maybe a couple back-to-backs, I want to say, in the span of a week to kick off the tournament. So that is really not ideal, especially just given where Giannis and everybody else is going to be from a conditioning standpoint. So again, we'll see. I mean, if Greece wins, I don't know. It's like if Greece wins their first like 3-4 games, like would they sit Giannis out or something like that to rest him? Like I have no idea, right? I don't think that's typically something you see in a tournament like this, but we will see. And hey, mid-afternoon, Giannis Antetokounmpo and brothers playing semi-competitive basketball in the middle of summer. Like I'll take that, right? I'll take that. Throw that on while I'm trying to do real work during the day. That's not a bad thing. I'm not complaining.
Yeah, it was a 3 a.m. tip for me. So I didn't get up for the. I was traveling yesterday. I didn't get up for the 3 a.m. tip. I'm saving myself for the qualifiers. I'm saving myself for EuroBasket. But I did notice, and this got me excited because I am really excited to watch Giannis in these big games against these big European nations. And obviously the Serbia game is going to be exciting because today I did see that Serbia played Slovenia. So you had Jokic, you had Doncic, and it did. I mean, I think it's going to be a crazy atmosphere. Obviously, Harris was talking about that. But yeah, I mean, Kostas, double digits. There was 4 players in double digits. So they did a fair chunk of the scoring for this team. Mamu, and by the way, before we move on, you said you were speaking to Eric. I'm not sure. Have you got any feedback how he's enjoying Greece? Has he ran into Bucks fans on the streets? Is there any type of Greek stories from Name?
I mean, I think all of the comments I've had back and forth with Eric have been in the exact same DM that you're in, Kane. So I have not been in contact with Eric beyond just our little group DM chat. But it sounds like he did a family trip in Austria last week, and then flew to Greece this week. And I think he was originally actually this was supposed to be like a family vacation, and because the man never stops. Well, he did stop. He stopped last week. But because Eric Name is so committed to documenting what's important to Milwaukee Bucks fans, he is putting in some shifts this week, covering Giannis and the Greek national team. I'm not sure. I'm curious. The real test is, does he go to the game on Thursdays, given that Giannis probably isn't going to play since it's a back-to-back-to-back. That's going to be a real test of how hard is Eric Name actually working this week. But I'm sure he is. His social media seems to be filled with food, a very international version of hashtag NBA Road Eats. So call it FIBA Road Eats for Eric Name. We'll have to have him come on. By the way, I'm still, I don't know if I've even informed you of this, but Eric Name and JJ Bursch and I, we've been talking at some point later in the summer, maybe when Eric gets back, we need to do a movie podcast. JJ being our, crossover Bucks fan / PhD in film theory. He just got his doctorate. So JJ's been on this podcast before talking about movies with me and Eric. And I don't know, Kane, if you even want to show up for that one, you're welcome to. No, you don't want to, but we'll talk about movies and stuff with Eric and JJ. when stuff gets really slow. Maybe right before EuroBasket kicks off, we'll have an episode about movies. We need to talk about Top Gun, a lot of TV shows that I've been watching lately. I got a full clip here of takes from a entertainment standpoint. Not sure if I have nearly as many takes from a basketball standpoint right now, but I will try. I will do my best, Kane. You know me. You put a topic in front of me, I'll blather for a few minutes regardless.
Oh, that's why before this podcast, you said, well, what are we going to talk about? And I've got no concern. We're going to blast through the 30-minute barrier with no troubles at all. I've actually got more Giannis stuff. So I want to come back to Giannis. I want to ask you a couple of things that I've been sort of pondering with this Team Greece stuff that's happening. But before I do, a message to any of our Greek fans. If you see Eric Name on the street, tell him that Kane Pittman thinks he sucks.
Kane Papa Pittman?
Kane Papa Pittman thinks he sucks. Because he will, first of all, he will love that. He will love hearing from you guys. And if I could have a message passed on to a Greek fan to tell Eric that while he's in Greece, it would just be a thrilling moment for me. I'll tell you what else is thrilling. I was reading these stats about Kevin Durant from betonline.net. Now, for some reason, they did this survey of all the negative tweets about Kevin Durant. And I guess they're trying to figure out which parts of the US, there's a big trade situation going on with Kevin Durant, and the most negative tweets about Kevin Durant. And by the way, you don't
Boston?
have to Boston, and you don't have to. And this doesn't surprise you because there's probably lots of negative tweets, basketball related, that if it's not about the Celtics, but you don't have to tweet negatively. By the way, but apparently most of them have been coming from that part of the US. Wisconsin came in 31 out of the states, and Wisconsin, a nice state, always friendly. Sometimes a bit of emotions about the Bucks or the Packers. But anyway, betonline.net, they do lots of things over there. But if you want to bet on the NBA, bet on NHL, bet on MLB, all these sports leagues, you can do that. The Packers, they'll be back soon. They're already playing. No one cares about preseason football, but week one won't be too far away. So,
I mean,
oh, I know. Yeah.
I don't know. Packer fans, I think, care a lot about. I mean, my timeline is filled with scrimmage tweets about the Packers. Friend of the pod, Andy Herman and company, are tweeting up a storm about what's happening at Packers practices and scrimmages. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna undersell NFL preseason, even though I may not be that interested. The NFL is the NFL. So speak for yourself, Kane.
No, you're right. Actually, people do care about it. I was very, very disappointed when my timeline filled up with Packers takes that I could not care less about. And those guys do great work, by the way, but I don't care. And I don't want to see these Bucks fans tweeting about the Packers. So bring the NBA back quick, smart. Let the Packers fizzle out in the postseason, and let's stick to basketball. But head to BetOnline today, or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so sticking with Giannis, because you did mention the schedule, going through, and it's in the YouTube comments. There's kind of a little battle going on between some Bucks fans, and it's the debate isn't going to go away. That they don't want him to play for Greece. Not that they don't want him to play for Greece, but they're concerned about his health. Greek fans, obviously, super passionate about their country. They're very proud to have him playing for Greece. So I've spoken about that. You're not going to stop these guys from playing for their country, nor should you. So I think it's great that he's playing for Greece. But I'd also like to see Suki Hobson on the bench next to him. Bud's obviously been over there and been to a few practices, seeing and greeting everyone, among other people from the Bucks staff. And
Josh Oppenheimer.
Well, on the staff.
Working him out every day, on the Greek national team staff,
and
getting some of that summer work in.
Andrew Small, Eric said, is over there, physio with the Bucks, Australian. He's just left Australia, actually, so just thought I'm just going to go from Australia to Greece. So shout out to Andrew Small.
Didn't take you with him, though, huh?
I actually asked him if he was coming down to Melbourne to see me, and he said no chance. So that's, at least I've got respect. I've got some respect within the staff. There's no doubt about that. But if you are a Bucks fan and you're pointing to, well, I don't think he's going to play back-to-back, it honestly will be interesting to see how they manage minutes, the games that he plays, and when the tournament starts, maybe it's more important then. But the Bucks are definitely having an influence over how he's managing his body and those types of things. And I think the interaction is good and should make you feel comfortable if you're a Bucks fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably a lot of folks remember. We'd have to double check what year it was. I don't know, Ken, if you want to Google this in the background, but what was it, 2018 maybe, or a number of years back. Giannis had been training with the Greek national team in the summer, and then Suki actually was flown out. I think they were doing exhibition play in China, and Suki flew out, and there was all this concern about his knee and soreness and stuff like that, and it became this big international incident practically, because the Bucks were like, yeah, he shouldn't play, and going to fly our people out there to make sure he's okay, kind of put him through the paces, and then they kind of ended up pulling him out, which I think created some bad blood for a while. Yes. So let's just say it seems like there's a much more integrated sort of approach from the start this time, but the reality is obviously injuries can happen at any time. I mean, you could get hurt doing individual workouts, by himself in an empty gym. It's just the way the kind of game is. But I think obviously when you are playing competitively, it increases the likelihood of something happening, just because again, you can't really predict what's going to happen when you have 10 people running around, and especially the way Giannis plays, and the speed with which he plays, which has been kind of fun to watch in FIBA play here these couple games. And by the way, it should be noted, I think he only has one foul and like 29 free throws in 45, 46 minutes of total play. I am curious to see how the whistle is for him when the games actually count, because certainly in the past, both ends I think have been frustrating for him. The defensive foul calls, as well as maybe not getting as much of a favorable whistle on the offensive side. So that certainly hasn't been the case so far. He got fouled 10 times today, I think Harris Stavro tweeted out. So yeah, I mean, look, he's just a different beast than kind of anything these guys have seen before. Some of these Polish guys might have played with, Marcin Gortat or Szymon Szewczak, former Bucks draft pick, great Szymon Szewczak, who, by the way, I once saw in Vegas play for the Bucks Summer League team like 10 years ago. But yeah, there's no simulating Giannis. There's nothing, nobody like Giannis that most of these guys have seen up close and personal. And so I'm sure it is, let's just say, a little bit of an adjustment, to say the least, when you have to go out there and find yourself staring down, Giannis coming at you like a freight train in the open court. So, so yeah, like we said up top, number one thing, health. Just cross your fingers that nothing happens. Giannis or Thanasis for that matter, but obviously Giannis, is our prime concern with everything. And but the good news is the Bucks obviously are well represented with the Greek national team, and again, just fingers crossed that that they make it through the next month or so unscathed, and still have time to kind of be in good shape, and hopefully, in game shape once training camp rolls around, right? I mean, we don't typically talk about kind of the game shape component of this to playing in the summer. Not that we worry about, Giannis being out of shape per se. But
he looks pretty good.
Yeah, but I don't think, as long as he's healthy, I don't think we're going to have any concerns about him being ready for the regular season. Keep in mind, I think during the Bud era, I don't think he's played more than 2 preseason games, like in any of those years. Because I looked this up once, because he's had some injury knocks that have limited him the last couple of years. But it's really going back a number of years. He's really not played much in the preseason. He's pretty much always been held out of at least some of the preseason games. So Giannis used to kind of sitting out much of the preseason, then just sort of showing up and dominating from the start. So so we'll see.
Yes, and just the final point, I mean, it makes absolute sense that the Bucks and the Greek national team should form some sort of relationship, because it probably figures to benefit both moving forward, rather than having the fracture, between both. So I think it makes sense. I think it's great. I don't know enough about that story back then. I certainly remember it, but I don't know the inside and out to comment on that. But certainly, I'm sure along the way, with multiple countries, there is some people that won't care about the Bucks and the 82 games he has to play after that, and they say, we want him for the next 2 weeks for this tournament because we want to win. So it's probably a bit of back and forth there.
The real question is if the Greek national team and the Bucks were really aligned, Greece, you couldn't have given us a heads up when we drafted the wrong Kalaitzakis twin last year. Come on, what's the deal? Yorgos doesn't even make the Greek national team training camp, and his twin brother does. That's just it's tough look. Tough look. Our Bucks got to do better. Drafted the wrong twin. Come on.
Well, the Bucks have played in London before. No game in Greece this season. Very disappointing. They should try and get that done at some point, but the schedule did drop. Speaking of travel and
Paris,
but that's Paris. That's right. They've been all over the place. Why they haven't been to Greece? I mean, that would be obviously an incredible atmosphere, I'd imagine, if the Bucks went out there for a game. But the schedule did drop today. Speaking of travel, by the way, they're going to have to go to Abu Dhabi for a couple of preseason games. So I don't know how they're going to manage that. I figure the NBA would want Giannis to be there. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll cross that bridge, obviously, when it comes to it. But the schedule drops.
He basically has to.
I know.
He basically has to play in those games. Hopefully, he doesn't have to put in a long shift. But yeah, this preseason definitely being different in the sense that there are a couple of showcase international games that the NBA will be leaning on them heavily. Fortunately, it's not it's not like they're going to make them play twice in 18 hours or something like that. But still, not exactly an ideal. I mean, if you ask me the option of having my team not have to travel internationally for preseason, I would say, well, let's go ahead and not do that. But so it goes. Remember, also not pre-Giannis, but didn't they played in? Was it in Taiwan or China? Remember when Joe Alexander was drafted and like the Bucks played in? I think they played in China, and it was
I try not to, but yeah. I don't know. I honestly can't remember that. Was it some sort of promo? Was it?
Well, I think it was after he was gone though, so it was kind of awkward. Yeah.
What do you look for when the schedule drops, Frank? Is there anything you're specifically from your analytical mind, or just your straight up fandom mind?
I think I'm always curious to see kind of if the balance is swung more towards. Is it like home heavy in the first half or second half? Seems like there's a really strong initial home bias, which again, pay me now, pay me later, right? I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. If they're playing without, Chris, for instance, maybe you're happy to have some of those games, some of those winnable games at home early in the calendar. But I don't feel that strongly about it. Interesting to see Philly as the opener, right? I think everybody's curious to see how Philly stacks up given kind of the offseason they've had. I think they've had a really good offseason. PJ Tucker going from the Heat to the Sixers, I think is a huge win for Philly, in part just because it takes away him from Miami. Probably makes Miami an easier option for the Bucks, just because I just don't think Giannis feels all that comfortable playing against PJ. Really struggled against the Heat last year, although certainly has had a lot of struggles over the years against the Heat. So I think that'll definitely be an interesting matchup. And then I thought kind of just one of the, we found a couple days ago that they were obviously going to play in Boston on Christmas, which I'm always a little torn. To be honest, I was really happy when they had that game in New York on Christmas, because I was like, okay, good. Play a crappy team. You're likely to get a win. Don't put a cloud over my Christmas day, because if the Bucks lose, I'm going to be in less of a good
particularly to Boston for you.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they, and last year, like the way they came, I was so sour. My family was just like, "Boy, you're such a grouch," because it looked like obviously they were going to lose that game. And then when they came back and won it, I mean, it was the best, right? It was such a fun game for them to win the way they did. Wes Matthews hitting the huge shot, Giannis making plays, that huge block on Robert Williams, and 36 points or whatever it was. So it was the best when they won. But the flip side was that, if you have to go on the road, and obviously you'd favor the Celtics in a home Christmas game, will certainly be less fun, right? Probably one of the least fun games to recap for me of the last few years was the Sixers when Philly got to hang their Christmas champion banner a few years ago, and kind of really gave it to the Bucks on Christmas. Maybe the high point of of the process era, to be honest. Let's be honest. Let's be realistic here. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm part of me is at this point just like, just give us an easy game. So I feel like we can just get a win and move on with our Christmas day. But I think the other thing about this interesting is, you don't play every team in your conference 4 times just because the math doesn't work that way. So a few teams you play only 3 times, and the Celtics are one of those teams. And not just that the Bucks are playing the Celtics 3 times, but they get 2 of those games at home. And you look last year; these teams were tied in the final regular season standings. I believe they split the regular season 2-2, right? Because they won the 2 home games. And so I forget which tiebreaker it went to, but it went to like the third or fourth tiebreaker for the Celtics to have the second seed over the Bucks. And of course, that was a big deal, right? they had home court advantage in the second round because of all that. And so you just never know, right? I mean, again, I think the Celtics are going to be an awesome regular season team this year, considering last year they kind of punted the first half of the season. You never know what's going to happen, but let's just say you get in a position where you're kind of comes down to the wire and you have the same record as the Celtics, but obviously getting 2 out of 3 games at home in the regular season, the first tie against the tiebreaker being head to head, maybe not as trivial or not as much of a footnote as we might otherwise think it is. So so that'll be interesting. And yeah, I don't know if I have any other massively hot takes on the schedule, but we'll see. You just never know with injuries. You never know when you would want to have kind of the hard part of your schedule. And obviously we'll see again late in the year kind of how important the last few games of the season are, just given where things are from a seeding standpoint. So who knows? We'll see. It is what it is. And I'm just looking forward to October 1st, I think the first preseason game is. It's kind of crazy. We're only like are we only 6 weeks away from that? Am I crazy? 6 weeks away from preseason basketball? It's wild.
With a bunch of Giannis basketball in between. So it feels like it's going to go pretty quick, I would say. And I should mention, by the way, we did a full sort of schedule recap. We went into the home away breakdown, national TV games, everything like that. I caught up with Camille and Justin. So find that in your podcast feed, find it on the YouTube feed, and you can listen to that one there. But opening night, I described it on that podcast. It is going to be a Twitter frenzy. You got Giannis and Harden, Giannis and Embiid, Giannis and PJ Tucker. Of course, the Sixers are trying to throw their hat in the Kevin Durant ring. I don't know, how that ends up or if it gets done in the next 2 months. It feels probably unlikely, but who could know? But could you imagine that as well? In terms of opening night games, and Philly is up pretty high, I think, with most Bucks fans in terms of teams you want to beat. It's probably nice that they then head to the home opener against Houston. They've had bigger home openers in the past, Frank. I know it's a big battle in your family, but the Rockets as a home opener, not quite ring night.
No, but I mean, hey, just hopefully bank some early wins, right? I got to see the road opener in Houston a few years ago, which was a lot of fun. The Bucks came back to win that game. That was one of their few kind of comeback wins, fourth quarter comeback wins that year. But yeah, I mean that string of road games early in the season or home games early in the season, hopefully that's a chance to kind of build a little bit of a buffer in the standings. Because again, we'll talk about it, I'm sure at some point, but I'm just really curious kind of where the Bucks end the regular season this year. Because on the one hand, you hope that you're not going to deal with another kind of Brook Lopez scale injury. And obviously Chris Middleton, indications are he'll, be back early in the season, right? If not for the opener. But, just looking at the rest of the East and just knowing kind of how the Bucks don't take the regular season, to me, like that seriously. I'm just really curious kind of see just kind of where they land, right? Because I mean, you look at the standings last year, it was really tight. Bucks get a few breaks. Maybe Brook Lopez comes back a few weeks earlier. They could have been the first seed, but they also, only finished a few games ahead of Toronto, and they were tied with Philly, for the tied with Philly and Boston for the 2, 3, 4 seeds in terms of just total number of wins. So nothing would really surprise me. I mean, if you told me that the Bucks, Chris Middleton missed a couple months, or God forbid something happened to Giannis, maybe he misses like a month or something like that. I mean, I don't think the Bucks are like guaranteed like a top 3 seed or something like that. And I think it would serve the Bucks well to be seated on the higher end. And like we saw last year, not having home court, might have been the thing that cost them a trip beyond the second round. So, I'm really just curious to see kind of where they get back to. And I think that really starts on the defensive end, right? I mean, being an average defensive team last year, finishing 14th, that's just not what we've expected from the Bucks. They've been sort of slip sliding down the standings a bit in terms of defense the last couple of years, going from first to 10th to 14th. And obviously they have felt like and shown in the 2021 season that they could turn it on in the playoffs when it mattered. But I don't know. I'm just really curious to see, and that's probably the thing that also gives me the greatest pause with just sort of the run it back mentality is, do you become a little bit complacent? Do you just say like, well, we know this group can win, so we'll just, we don't need to go all out for a regular season, and oh, we win. Okay, maybe we only win 49 games and we finish the 5th seed. Oh, well, like we can still win a championship. And I think they can, right? They've shown they can win series without home court advantage. They did that twice when they won a title. But again, it's like, I mean, we know how hard it is to win 4 series, and to just create more of a challenge for yourself than you need to. That's tough. So that's kind of one of the themes I'm just sort of most curious about when I think about this team. And just thinking about the fact that they are pretty much running back the same group, would a little bit more of a change have been some way to kind of energize this group a little bit. And again, we never know. I mean, there could still be a trade before opening night, but that's kind of one of those things that I'm curious about. I don't doubt that this team can win a championship with the personnel they have, but you do kind of wonder, at some point, do you just risk kind of letting things get a little bit stale?
Yeah, that's why, the preseason strength of schedule and all those types of things are, I mean, you read into it what you will, but things are going to change that are going to make certain matchups easier or harder along the way. So we'll see. It's going to come around quickly. Make sure you check out the Locked On NBA podcast as well. They've done a full schedule review. Like we said, there's plenty of international basketball going on. So check out that podcast. We'll be back next week. I'm not podcasting this weekend, Frank. I got plans. Can you believe that?
What, do you want to tell us about it?
No, really. I'm just going to watch Geelong play footy, so it's pretty standard stuff. Pretty standard stuff for me. But
how's Geelong looking in Australian rules football?
Yep, top of the standings. Last game of the regular season this weekend, and they're on top. So, see what happens. See if they don't choke it away. Who knows?
Where are they? Does BetOnline have them have odds on Geelong to win? Is it is it the grand final or grand finale? What is it?
Grand final. Grand final. Late September 23 this year, I believe. So only a few weeks away. They are the favorite, pretty comfortably, but anything could happen. Keeping a lid on it.
Are you covering any of these games for ESPN Australia?
I am in the stands drinking beers like an absolute hooligan.
I mean, isn't that how Australian journalists also cover games? Is there a difference? Don't you?
Well, I tell you what, I never drank a beer in the press box at the Fiserv Forum, but I wouldn't have been opposed to it. They keep on mentioning the beer button. I was like, I wonder if I used the beer button to get a beer up to the press box, whether they would deliver it. Probably not.
I mean, the Milwaukee Brewers, right? Like, I don't know how the rules work there, but I mean, you're really just begging for some shenanigans in the press box. You got Bernie Brewer sliding into well, I guess he doesn't slide into the beer anymore, but it's a whole, it's just a very, very beer friendly out there at the park. I will still call Miller Park. So anyway, so much for that. Fingers crossed, Giannis and Mamu have healthy and productive weekends, and we'll get back at it next week. Maybe preview some FIBA World Cup qualifying for the Greek national team. Locked on Greece. Locked on Greek basketball continues.
Locked on Greece. Giannis Jokic next week. That will genuinely be fun. That'll be a good one. I think we might be able to dive into a proper post-game podcast for that one. So we'll have you covered there. we'll leave it there. Speak to you guys next week.